Hi guys, David Jennings here from davidjennings.com, and today very excited, lined up a phone call with Rich Schefren. Now, I've been chasing this phone call down for quite a few weeks, so I think it's something that I'm looking forward to just as much as you guys. For those of you who don't know much about Rich Schefren, at least I think if you've been in the internet marketing space, you definitely would have heard the name. Sort of digging a little bit deeper into his history, Rich has got a really varied entrepreneurial journey that he's gone through. Everything from starting a clothing store or building up a clothing store around techno clothes and then moving over into hypnosis business and building that up to a business with a turnover of over $7 million. And then he kind of shifted over into the internet marketing space. Around 2004, that's when he launched his company, Strategic Profits. But Rich really has coached some of the biggest names in IM, everyone from Brad Fallon, Mike Filsaime, Jeff Walker, Ryan Dice, Marlon Sanders, and that's just to name a few. And currently he's working with Jay Abrahams, he pops up, and he's done a lot of work with Dan Kennedy, John Carlton, Alex Mendozian, Yannick Silva, and a whole host of others. I suppose I was first introduced to Rich's stuff. I saw one of his presentations that came out just before he released the Internet Business Manifesto, and I think for a lot of internet marketers that was a real pivotal piece in a lot of the puzzle for people building their online businesses and understanding the importance of building a team. And I think that's one of the key ideas that I got out of what Rich did, especially early on, was the idea of building a team and how to select A players. And then joined his coaching program, and another thing that I got out of that was making sure you identify what your strengths are, and as you're building your team, you work on your strengths and building your team to complement that. And he's come up with tons of different reports. Like some of the free reports that get given out are just as good as any other paid products. There's another one I really like, the Maven Manifesto. Some of these names I'm mentioning you might want to seek out, because that Maven Manifesto is an excellent sort of document for how to position yourself as an expert. And also another one of the key insights, just to name a few, was in the Business Acceleration Program. I got out of that a whole host of things. But one of the things Rich mentioned was the idea of listening to audio in 2-speed using faster audio. And I recommend that to all of my guys now, and Rich is pretty much the one that got me onto it. So suffice to say, very excited to have Rich on the call, and just like to welcome you there, Rich.
Yes, I am, and thanks for that introduction, Dave. Glad to be here. And sorry for the difficulties in tracking me down.
I'm sure it'll be well worth it. If we just dive straight into it, I know your real core area of competency really is building business, and you do that very well. And I suppose I'll start off with a very broad, general question, and you can sort of take it in any direction that you want. But when you're building a new business, let's say that you're someone's starting up with a new business, they might have an idea about the product and service, or even the space, the niche they're going after. Once they've got that idea, how do you coach people to actually go about building a business? Where do you go?
Okay, well, first off, what I generally like to do for myself, as well as when I'm coaching others, is actually take a step back from there and make sure that where the person wants to go, or if it's me, that in its business that I'm starting, that that my strength allows me to really develop a positioning and offer a product that I believe can be the best option for a segment of the market. So, you mentioned the clothing store that I took over. That was a pre-existing business, but I had to move that business in another direction to be successful because it was failing when I took it over, and we were competing with the biggest retailers in the world because we were on one of the most competitive streets in the world, on Broadway in Manhattan. And so the reason that I was able to turn that business around was I ran the business correctly, and that needed to be done. But the most important thing was really figuring out, like, what could we do? What could we create? What kind of store would we really have an advantage over everybody else? And so in that particular case, it was to club kids, because I happened to be a club kid at that time. And so I felt like no one would be able to compete with me unless it was another club kid, because I would know that customer better and I would know that market better, and therefore I would be able to serve that customer better. So it always starts there for me. And if, when I'm working with a client, it's the same thing. I always want to make sure that if we do, the idea being this, is that if the business runs right, we should make a lot of money. And if you have the wrong positioning, wrong strength, et cetera, then you could run the business right and not make a lot of money. So I always take a step back and make sure that this is something that actually, if we do all the other things right, it should be very desirable to a segment of the market. So that's number one. And, that's why we use tests to help people figure out what their strengths are. And then after that, it's about just figuring out where the positioning would be ideal. And that really is it's an overlap of 4 different areas, really. I know this is a little off of where you were going, so I'm going to just kind of try and tie it in real quick, and then we can go to the others. But it's really a question of 4 overlapping kind of circles, and it's your strengths. That's like primary. That's why you need to know your strengths. The opportunity in the marketplace, which is basically looking at the competition in the landscape and, seeing where there might be some pockets of opportunity. Your passion, because ideally, if you're going to start a business, you want it to be something that you're fully invested in, and not just for the money, but that you can actually will persevere. And it's much easier to persevere when you're passionate. And it's also, someone once said, it's not me, I don't know who said it first, but I love the quote. The number one productivity secret in the world is to be passionate with what you're working on. And I agree wholeheartedly. And then the last thing is resources. Like, do you have the resources? So, it's resources, opportunity, strengths, and passion. And what you want to do is, if you're starting a business, you want to find that place where you can start a business that has those 4 circles kind of overlapping. And if you're taking over a business that's failing, or you're in a business that's not doing that great and you want to make it great, it's trying to move it in that direction. Because you can take an existing business like I did in the clothing business, and I moved it into that direction. So that's where it starts, because ideally where you want to be operating from is the concept that you really are the best at what you're doing. And so therefore it's the default choice. Like, people would have to be crazy to go someplace else. And I like to have that kind of situation, especially in my head, because it just makes everything else come from a place of conviction.